This is the first video in a new series I'm going to call Putting It on the Glass. As all of you know, or most of you know, I became a lease operator, not a lease purchase, strictly a lease operator with a company called Arter Express. Arter Express leases their trucks from Penske, and we lease them from Arter. As a result, I'll never own this truck. It's strictly a lease. The neatest thing is the lease is paid by the mile, and my compensation is by the mile. I make $2.50 per mile. That's at the present time. There's a market adjustment for fuel, which changes up and down. But at present time, it's $2.50 per mile driven in the Central Division. That's the Central Van Division. And that's what I'm in. It's a 17-state market. And it does show $2.51 if you look on the website and you run the calculator, but that includes 1 cent that you would only get if you're using the company card. I'm not using the company card. I use my own cards. I have several cards, and that's what I'm using. Now, these numbers that I'm putting out are not necessarily the numbers that you'll get because you may run things differently. Again, it's a 1099 position. So these numbers do not include taxes that are going to be removed. Yes, I will be putting aside money for taxes. I already am. And I don't discuss taxes because your taxes are different than my taxes, and my taxes are different than several other people's because each of us have individual situations. You may only have one job. You could have a retirement. You could have 3 or 4 dependents. There are a lot of different equations in there, so there is no right answer and wrong answer on that. Get with your accountant to figure it out. All right, without further ado, let's get into the video. This first week started off with orientation. Orientation, I had to drive from Shadydale, Georgia to St. Louis, Missouri. I picked the car up in Conyers, Georgia. Keep in mind that they will get you whatever mode of transportation you want. That's Amtrak, an airline ticket, a rental car, and they do get a fantastic rate. But you are reimbursing that if you're going as a lease operator. Same with the hotel. Stayed at the Drury Inn, right over there near the airport. Great views of the airport. But again, you are going to be paying that back. So just keep that in mind when you go. Got to do a little sightseeing because I got in on Monday. Went down, checked out the arch, took the drone up. I wasn't able to take the drone really close because of restricted airspace. If I went a couple blocks over, there's a place that I can get the drone a little closer, and I may do that in a future video. It's just something to see in St. Louis. I also want to go up and tour that. I haven't done that since I was a kid. There's my rental car, and I had returned the rental car 2 doors down from the hotel. It's real easy to do. However, do not drive in the wrong entrance. They got some serious treadles to damage tires there. The hotel includes dinner and breakfast, and the dinner's really good. I highly suggest trying it. However, if you decide you want some snacks or something, go next door to the BP and get your snacks. They're much cheaper. They got coffee at the terminal, just letting you know. My first run was from St. Peters, Missouri to Jefferson, Georgia. You have a dispatcher your first couple of weeks that helps you get used to the load board, figure things out. And your dispatcher after your first couple of weeks will help you as much or as little as you ask them to do. I think I'll be doing this run quite frequently because it goes close to my house. I weighed the truck at the CAT scale at the Love's Country Store in St. Louis, Missouri. Seems to have the lowest fuel price too. Compensation was exactly what I found on the website. So were the costs and expenses. Everything was exactly as I expected it to be. My second run was from Greenville, South Carolina to Wilmington, Illinois. That run, I had to deadhead 87.5 miles. The first 50 miles of deadhead are on me. After that, the company pays 75 cents a mile for deadhead. Basically, it'll cover fuel. I also weighed that truck, and my expenses were exactly as I expected them to be, and so was my revenues. If you want to take a look and see exactly what those expenses and revenues are, on the Arter website under Leasing Program, They only have a few variables to set. I'm in the van division central, and I drive a 2022 truck. So then I click calculate, and it shows me exactly what my fixed expenses are and what my compensation will be. It's $2.50 per mile. I know it does say $2.51, but I don't get the fuel rebate because I don't use the company card. Under the expenses, my expenses are 76 cents per mile. That's all my fixed expenses. That covers everything except for fuels, tolls, and scale tickets. Okay, it's time to put it on the glass. Here's my pay settlement. This is the first pay settlement I've had from Arter Express. And when I take a look at it, the very first thing you see is the orientation. It shows up as a trip, and it was paid at $175. Then we move on to the first trip that I had, the actual driving trip. And the first trip was from St. Peters, Missouri to Jefferson, Georgia. All of the expenses, fixed expenses, are broken down so you can clearly see them. And all of the revenues are broken down so that they make exactly the sense that they're supposed to make. You can always freeze this when you want to take a closer look at them. This is my second trip from Greenville, South Carolina to Wilmington, Illinois. And that were the only two trips that I completed before Sunday at midnight, which is when it ends. $2603.78 was my exact compensation. And the only thing deducted from that was the $33.40 for scale tickets. I highly advise you to use your own credit card when you do it instead of the company EFS, because if you use the company EFS, you're charged $1.30 per transaction on those scale tickets. And that can really add up. So I went ahead and I put my own credit card on there so I won't have that charge in the future. All right, here's what my logs look like for that week. The weekend's on Sunday. I had 28 hours and 44 minutes of drive time, 4 hours and 49 minutes of on-duty time. That makes a total of 33 hours and 33 minutes. I had 1,458 miles. Time to talk about fuel. Now, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. I'm going to tell you how I do mine. What I do is I use multiple programs and multiple cards to find the best discount that I can. It's very important that you look for the best discount that you can because fuel is our biggest expense that we have. I bought a total of 244 gallons. My average price for that was 5.143 gallons, and it was $1,255. Want to look at my mileage? I checked the mileage I got on those tanks. Now, I don't always fill exactly at the same time that the runs are, so I have to multiply that out, and then that's how I figure out the fuel. These two fill-ups lasted 1,691 miles, so I was getting 6.9 mpg. I will get better mileage as I learn this truck. Every time I fuel my truck, I fill it all the way up to the very top. Now, somebody who's starting out, if you're having cash flow issues, you may not want to fill your saddlebags all the way. You may want to fill for the run. Personally, I want to fill my truck as full as I can so that I can divide it and see how much was used. I'm going to call this my summary page. On my summary page, I start out, I've got my logs. And as you see, I've got 28.75 hours of drive time, 33.5 hours of on-duty and drive time. I have rounded those numbers to make things easier. At the bottom left corner, I've got my earnings. This is my earnings. This is my revenue minus my fixed expenses. So it's $2,570.38. This will include everything except my tolls, scale tickets, and my fuel. On the top right corner, we've got my fuel. I did 1,458 miles divided by 6.9 mpg multiplied by the average price I paid per gallon for that fuel, and that's $5.143, gives me a total of $1,087 in fuel. That's a lot of fuel, people. Subtract that from the revenue, and I come to $1,483 as my net to the truck. Now keep in mind it is a 1099 position, so I will have taxes coming out of that. And everybody's taxes are different, so we never compare taxes. You may have more dependents, less dependents. You may have higher or lower taxes. You could have other things taken out of your check. Another thing I want to take a look at is, you see this, I put miles per hour there. That is simply this division of the number of miles traveled that day by the number of hours on driveline. That does not mean I was traveling at 55 miles an hour to get that. It simply means that is what my overall accomplishment was for that particular day. I drive at different speeds based upon the load that I'm running, when it has to be there, traffic conditions, mountains, weight of the truck, and I will learn how to manage that better as time goes along. All right, so we've seen the raw numbers. We've taken a look at it. We've seen how much I got in revenue, and we've seen how much I had in fixed expenses and how much in variable expenses. I'll try to flesh it out a little better. There are certain things that I haven't included specifically that I will, such as exact tolls, exact costs for scale tickets. I'll have to put DEF fluid in there. These are all things that I'll flesh out as I continue to work on this series. Now, this time there were only 2 runs on there and only 2 fuelings. There will be more fueling and there will be more runs on full weeks. And there will also be times where I go home. And when I go home, I pay no fixed expenses on this truck. Because when the truck's sitting in the driveway, I'm not paying anything on it. I only pay my fixed expenses on loaded dispatched miles. And that's kind of a big difference in this particular kind of lease than a standard lease through another company such as, say, SFI. Whereas you'll have a monthly payment that comes in you'll have a weekly payment that comes in every single week, regardless whether that truck's running or not. And that could put you behind the 8 ball if you've got some kind of problem that happens and you're out for a week or two. You've got to make that up. Again, these are my numbers. I'm not telling you how to run your business. I'm not telling you you're doing it wrong. I'm not telling you you're doing it right. I'm learning as we go. I'm going to continue to learn. I'm going to continue to grow. And I hope you'll follow along. And remember, be sure you're enjoying every day at work.